So this is an 11 by 14 canvas. Welcome. This is a live recording. So if you hear me talking, I'm talking to people in chat. And what I did to prep it was I just put dictionary paper and old book text going every which way. And I painted the sides. I think I used an ultramarine and a phthalo turquoise. And so I painted all four sides. I found on Pinterest a free color book page that I liked. I did draw a sea turtle. I'll show you the sea turtle I drew. It's in here somewhere. Let me find it. It was a little anemic. He had a good start, but I just got frustrated and I just didn't want to spend. So I just was having a really hard time getting the proportions and I didn't want to erase and draw, and I just don't have patience for drawing. So I cheated. And like I said, this is a free color book page, and then I went to the UPS place and had them printed just on regular paper in an 8 by 10. Let me turn the sound off on my phone. And I'm going to use it for paper piecing to help cut the pieces. And so then I just took a piece of the graphite. This is a real small piece, but just a piece of graphite, like tissue paper, and traced him on the canvas so that we had something kind of to work with. And the first thing I did was I found a piece of 12 by 12 scrapbook paper because I know I wanted to frame it again. Because I didn't take the paper over the edges. And that will give it kind of a finished frame. And I'll show you the papers I pulled. So for the turtle, I pulled some yellows with turquoise, browns. Let me lay these out and I'll hold it up so you can see a little better. Some browns and some greens. And I thought I could just use a combination of, even have a jelly print that's in a green that I think I'm going to use. But kind of a combination of those to get a variety of prints and patterns for the turtle and the shell. I'll set those aside and stack so I can grab them. And then on one of the other pictures that I had found, the references, lower my audio? Okay. Thanks, Carrie. Tell me if that's okay. That's better. Yeah. No sound now. Too much sound? Tell me if that's better. Okay, thanks, Arlene. So on one of the other coloring book pages that I found had smaller turtles, had like a small sea turtle, which I ended up turning into a stencil, had some swirls on it, and I thought I might use those swirls in the background, and so I pulled some darker teals, but I'm not sure. I figured let's do the turtle and then we'll see. Even a smidge lower? Okay. Because I'm loud. Yeah, there's probably less feedback. I just brought it down too. Let me know. All right. And then this was possibly as a background color. So let's start with, I'm going to start with the little paper strips again. And I'm just using gel medium. Let me share something with you. I went to Walmart and they had Mod Podge for furniture mat for $5. I thought, well, you know, how different could it be? And I went ahead and bought it, and I don't dislike it. It's much thinner, but I did end up getting some regular. Well, I think I'm loud because of teaching. I'm always like projecting to the back of the room. So I think I am just naturally a little louder. But I had never really bought a bunch of different formulas of the Mod Podge. So I was sort of surprised that there kind of was a difference in the formulation. And I'll use that. It just was thinner, and I had to use more of it. When I was using the furniture one. I cut last night about 10 new stencils on my Cameo, and I don't know, I don't do it all that often, so it's always a learning curve to get to remember what the settings are. But I finally got it going and was able to cut 10 of the files that I had bought on Silhouette. Yeah, you got your gesso, Carrie? That's good, so you're not worried. Then if they go on strike, it's not like your order's just out there stuck. Yeah, I have cut them. I have it's not a stencil cutter. It's a wood burning. And I put it on glass and cut, but I found it got real rough edges. That's why I ended up buying the Silhouette. I need to trim this one just a little bit. Just going to mark it. And trim both at the same time. That's what I use, Carrie, is the plastic dividers for the binders from the notebooks. I get them at the Dollar Tree here, and I usually can get 8 in a package for $1. They're not as heavy as stencils that you buy, but I actually like them better for jelly printing, which is usually what I'm doing with my stencils most of the time. I don't think it's as hard to Yeah, Vicky. You can. I just went with a silhouette because I didn't want to buy cartridges or dies, which is why I don't have like the big shot or anything like that. And the other thing that I bought with the silhouette is, and I haven't used it, is I bought a mat where you can like take a picture with your phone of an image and send it into the program and get your cut lines. And you can print and cut. I don't ever do any of the printing on my silhouette because the pins are not waterproof. So if you're going to do layers, but if you were like card maker, or you can do that too. All right, there's a little bit of a gap on this one. I'm gonna see if I can shift it. And cover it up over here. Well, yeah, last night when I did the sea turtle stencil that I made, the little one, I just put the divider on top of the image and traced it with a Sharpie and fussy cut. So I have some mask that I've done that way too. Okay. So I think I'm gonna let that dry a little bit, and I'll just use a marker. A yellow, a green, and a brown. So if I do a yellow and a green and a brown, put a yellow here and a yellow here, and then put a brown there, a brown there, and a brown here. I'm not going to worry about brown touching brown because I'm going to let some of the background. I just want to kind of sort of plan. What I want to do balance wise. On the shell. And all right, so that kind of gives me an idea for the kind of the paper piecing. Part of it. And I think I'm going to do for this arm is flip it and use it one arm for both. And I think I'm going to do the arm and the leg and the head first. And I think I'm going to put those in greens. Actually, I think I'll do this, the head in this lighter color. And then I can add some green over it. And I'm just going to fussy cut around just slightly larger than what my original cut was. Then he'll cover the trace marks. Actually, I think I'm going to use this and this for the flippers. And I think I'm going to merge them. I'm going to put them together. And I'm going to cut 4. So I think I'll put a blend of those maybe. And then I'll add the detail with some of the paint in some of the newspaper area that I leave. Okay, so that's one for that side and one for that side. And then I think I'll use this and the printed part of this. It's got some teal and some yellow. And this time when I cut 2, I'm going to flip it upside down and cut it so that they're, let me flip that, sorry. And then I'll have 2 pieces that are basically the same. And if I tear them and use different portions of them, so I'll use a combination of both. Like I think on this one I'm going to tear the dark and keep the dark on the top. And then glue that over the whole piece. On this one, I don't think I want to tear the bottom because it goes off the edge. So I think I'll leave that one like that. And on this one, I think I'm going to put this boulder pattern on the top. And on this one, I'm going to tear out some of the, so we get some newsprint for sure. I made it do that down here too on this one because I like the print sticking out from the bottom layer. think I'll do it more up here. I don't want to lose, there's some print on this that I really like, so I don't think I want to lose that. So I think I'll do it right in here. Can't do it on the tip. Okay, I think that works. So that gets the bottom of both of these. I don't know what we're going to do for dinner today. I know we're going to grill tomorrow and go over to friends. All right, I'm going to put the, you know, I think I may do the same thing with the head where I can get another color. I think I'll use the yellow. It's a darker yellow. And do the head. And I think I'll keep the yellow as the predominant because it'll be easier to add details to. And keep the darker on the top. And then pull away some of the yellow. So it's a combination of the paper and the newsprint underneath. All right, so I'm gonna glue those down. Someone at the last art show had asked me, I had some jelly prints that were seahorses, and I had dogs, and I had A&M, and I had TCU, because that's our, you know, I didn't have the Longhorns or some of the other teams around. And they were like, if you had sea turtles, I would, and I was like, that's a really good idea. I hadn't thought of them. And so that's kind of what made me think when I was researching possible subjects. Made me think of the sea turtle. Well, we always miss you, Terry, when you're gone. But we may not have noticed. Okay. Like a bump right in here, a crease. looking at the chat. And almost all of these papers are 6x6, which I prefer when collaging to use a lot of times. I find it easier to work with the scale of the print. Unless you're doing a really big canvas or a really big piece. The 12x12 paper usually has too big. I'm going to adjust the length on that just a little bit. Okay. So he has that part of his body. Now, back leg, and then we'll work on the shell. Okay, I think I'm going to do one of the legs in the yellow. And I want those dots. I think this green right here. And I'm going to flip them. So one of the papers is on the top and one of the papers is on the bottom. So that when I cut them, they'll both be this leg. Okay. Well, that worked for the yellow. It did not totally work for the turquoise, but that's okay. We got more turquoise. Because this just didn't work for the mirror image was the top was the problem. But I'll use that as a piece somewhere else for one of the shell pieces. Alright, because I think I want that to be the base, and then put just a small sliver of the yellow. Okay. Get rid of this little trash bit here. And then thinking the brown in here somewhere. With maybe a little bit of the dot. I don't want too dark. I think I want the dot on this side. Okay, just get rid of some of that extra paper. Find the right piece. This is that other arm that you didn't use. I think I'm gonna put the brown with just a little bit of the turquoise on top. And I'm gonna leave that one, since it's so small, I'm just gonna leave it whole and not worry about newsprint. No, I don't. I've just been doing impromptu, Carrie, because when I look at, well, when I first started streaming, Ash was on because when I'm teaching, Saturdays and Sundays are about the only day that I could consistently like commit to a day. And when I first looked at it, Ash was on Saturdays and Xandra, and it would be so busy on a Saturday that I would just sort of jump in when I could or find an open spot. And now that it's summer, I can, pretty much stream whenever I want. So I've just been doing impromptu and kind of just filling in, like, when I kind of like, filling in when people are like off, and like a substitute teacher. But I'm not sure because sometimes it gets so crazy during the school year that I can't even commit to streaming once a week, or even putting up YouTube videos, for that matter, even. I know if I picked a time and was more consistent, I would have more viewers. Yeah, no, she doesn't stream on Saturday anymore. But when I first got my camera and started streaming, the Saturdays were so full. I mean, even Debby was streaming sometimes on Saturday at, yeah, so I think right now I'm just going to stick with the impromptu. And then when the school year starts, I might see kind of what everybody's doing. Because when able, And when Ustream cooperates, I always upload them to my YouTube channel. And I still like doing some, yeah, I'm just flexible. And if, like if Jean's going to be off, then there's someplace else that everybody could go kind of thing. And Colleen was streaming a lot more, and she hasn't been lately. All right, so we have flippers, and we're ready to, they're all coated. And I make sure that they have a real good coat of the gel medium on the top. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put a coat around the outside and let it start drying while we're working on the shell pieces, because I will use my Faber Castell Pitt pens and probably some of the mixed media fluid acrylics when I go in and add the details. Yeah, Z should be on tonight before Paula, I think. I didn't see anything about her not streaming today or this weekend. Okay. But if you use the Faber Castell markers the way I use them, you have to do it over gel medium. For those of you who don't watch me regularly, that's my go-to art supply besides the jelly plate. Yeah, Carrie. And the more you stream, the faster you can fill up some of your monetized. You can even go in and monetize some of your old YouTube videos. If you just click on a video that you have, Carrie, and say edit, you can go and monetize them. And then you can start, you of course won't earn any money on previous views, but you would continue to earn money on the current and future views for those older YouTubes, because you can go in and turn it off and on. All mine are monetized. I mean, I don't earn that much. I think they've paid me twice now since I've started my YouTube channel. All right, so let me set that aside and get some of the papers that we're using and some of the newer other ones. Have a stripe, which I think will be good. I have another one of this one with the print. That's a floral on one side. There's a brown with wording. That. Okay. And I'm going to get rid of these smaller pieces first and set them to the side. I'm just going to set that pattern to the side until I make my internal decisions more. And this is more of a turquoise, but that's what I'm counting as my green. And I think on these I'm not going to do the like two. I'm just going to do one color and then tear it once I have it in a spot so I can leave some newsprint. Alright, so let me get this back. It's a little bit drier now. So I'll just sort of lay them on here kind of like a puzzle piece. I know this, I want this lighter color. I have it here, so I know I want it sort of back in here. This reminds me of quilting. When I paper piece. Because you're finding that balance between pattern and color, your darks and your lights. Okay. And I'm going to do this larger brown in a dark. It's quilting with no sewing. So so that will go back there. And then this is like a piece of cork color, a lighter brown. That goes in there. Okay, then I want to brown here. And I think for this one that I'm going to call brown, I'm just going to use some of this beige. I'm going to do yellow first, because I need to cut that one before I cut this one. Before I cut the pattern too far apart. Okay, so that one will go in there. this one out in this beige, and then I'll add some, make it more, a little more brown probably. Most of these papers are from 3 packs. The dark teals came from 1 pack. The yellow and teals came from a different paper pack. And then the browns came, well, the browns came from a couple different ones, in reality, probably. Alright, I need this little piece here. I think I'll wait on that for a minute. I think I'll do this floral right here. Okay. It's time for that big yellow. I think I'll get the part that had the yellow and the text right here for this big one. Alright. And like I said, that's the same, but I'm going to change it with paint. Or I can change the pattern if we like. Hi, Lynn! We're paper piecing a sea turtle. No, let me use this piece right here. Well, you know what? I'm going to change. I'll just change that piece out right now. And put a little bit of this here. Then it won't be next to each other. Okay. I think I want a little bit more of this herringbone. Stuck mostly to my pattern of colors, but I adjusted it a little bit here and there as I, based on lights or darks, lights, patterns, and colors. Okay. I think I'll do that bright yellow again right here. Oh. Does anybody have any really exciting plans for those of you who are in the U.S. for the 4th? Thank you, Lynn. Okay, so that's the main part of the shell. I need, I think, like one more littler piece. Yeah, we're going to go to Friends tomorrow and grill. And then I think on Monday, I think the big plan is to try to figure out where we can go watch fireworks. And my husband can fly his drone and try to get some footage that would not. We got to figure out someplace we can go watch them and get a good view, but not infringe or obstruct anybody else's view, is what he's trying to, like, where it's flat and a good view, but you don't have a whole bunch of people around you, just so that we're not like blocking someone else's view with the drone or annoying them with the drone. Okay. Now the question is how much. I think I'm going to glue all of this down and decide how much of it to tear before I do this ring right here. And some of these littler pieces, I'm not going to tear. I'm going to leave them solid. And I've been really kind of trying to lean. Yeah, Monday I'll stream. I'll jelly print and stream on Monday. Because we're not doing anything other than going to watch fireworks. We don't have kids or family, really, for the most part. That we see. I think the collage package is a good idea, Carrie. I also think little Midori inserts, because your backgrounds, like when you just do some of the color and the stenciling and little bits of magazine without like a focal image on them, are so interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Dee Dee's stream Monday. I think it'll be fun. With her and the kids and her daughter. Okay. So then I'm just going to tear my phone. Yes, it keeps. Let me mute it. It's on the table. It vibrates too much on that. Okay. And I'm just tearing some of these just to allow some of that background to show through here and there. All right, so there's another row in. Put this piece back here. And I think some of these ones on the front, I may keep a little. More of the paper, the pattern paper. Okay. Well, like I said, I did put the pieces to the side and laid them on my drawing as I was doing it. And then I just pulled like down by rows. To keep it kind of together. And work from the top down. But yeah, you could, and you could lose your pieces in the scraps. So as I tear it, I've been putting the scraps to the side, and I've been keeping the pieces here. The pattern pieces I used are over here, and the ones, so I've been trying a little bit of a system kind of around me. I think I'll leave that one whole. And I could have made my text directional if I had like planned, like I knew I was going to do a sea turtle. But all right, so that's all on. So now I'm going to work on the rest of the shell here, and I'm going to use this little piece I didn't use, I think think I can fit it in there. And these are really small. So I think as I cut them, I'm going to glue them. Because these are the really tiny pieces. And then you got to figure out which way it fits. Thank you, Mildred. And then I'm just going to tear out a portion. That one didn't even have any print where I tore it on the canvas. But it'll give me a spot to put some of the pit marker and add some of the shading and the detail. I think I will tear it a little more though. A little more natural than that cut edge. Okay. Let's see, I think some of that stripe maybe in here. Might be good. And some of these littler pieces I may not tear. What needs to be just a little. Okay, and I'm going to use that little turquoise pattern for the next one. After this one's done, I need to vacuum the rug in here. I picked up the bigger pieces the other day, but whew, it has some little tiny scraps of paper everywhere because I've been doing so much paper piecing stuff. I had leftover pizza last night, but that still sounds good, Carrie. But actually, so does chopped beef on a baked potato. You can't go wrong with jelly printing. Just saying. Okay, a yellow. Actually, somehow I didn't get any of this in there. So I'll do this big piece in that zigzag. I was going to use it on one of these and then ended up not. One of the things I need to jelly print on Monday is I need some more napkins jelly printed. Okay, I'm going to tear this one. The other thing about your scraps when doing this is you got to make sure they don't land randomly on your canvas, because you get little pieces glued somewhere that you don't want. All right, in a dark brown, I think. Just some of this wood brown. But I don't use deli paper on projects, so I don't ever. I have some that people have sent me, but I don't have any deli paper. I don't like, it doesn't go translucent enough for me. Alright, so here's the big piece we want in the zigzag pattern. I need to get some of that. When I print on a variety of paperweights. If I know I'm going to use it as a background, I like the heavy. Yeah. I know that, Shauna. I've seen the Daddy Vans too. I just haven't bought any of it. I have something from Deco Arts that I keep thinking might work the same way. I'll show it to you in just a minute. But I like to print on the heavier cardstock if I'm going for like the background, the base to work on. And I found that if I'm going to collage with it a lot, I like the copy paper. I like vintage music and map. Especially if I'm using and getting like leaving some of the white or the negative. Otherwise, I don't really like that white. I use my brayer papers to kind of give me a base to jelly print on sometimes because I don't like that white. Negative space. But what I use instead of deli paper is I print on the back of decorative napkins. So like how we all use, like this is a napkin that I got in Happy Mail. I'll take the top off and keep the back and use the backs on my jelly print. Yeah, the napkin backings that I peel off that everybody else might think, oh, throw away, I jelly print on them. Yeah, I don't use them like napkins, like like a baby wipe napkin or anything like that, or to sop up paint or you could do that too, like just for cleaning your brushes, almost like you do baby wipes. But I really like jelly printing on them, but I'll show you what I think might work on like Daddy Vans, but I haven't tried it yet. I ordered from Deco Arts. And I didn't even remember I had this. You should probably dig around in your stuff more. I ordered this, and so we'll have to try some of this. This is their Americana Image Transfer Medium. This is from their furniture line. But I ordered this cream wax, which is basically for like waxing your furniture after you finished it and stuff and putting. So I think that might work similar to Daddy Vans, but I'm not sure about the consistency. I haven't opened it up yet. And I was going to order some of this line of their decor paints and do a furniture project, which I just haven't done. I ordered some of their big decor French stencils. Well, when we did the napkin swap, the way that we did it, the one that I did with the time before, is everybody sent a set number of napkins, like 2 of each, 5 prints. We, came up with so like you were sending 10, and we were told to peel off and just send the tops. But whatever we were doing, I ended up with like 40 plus napkins and of like 4 different prints. Well, you're not going to use. I don't use the same print over and over typically. So we folded them back up once we just had the top layers, and you addressed a self-addressed stamp envelope to yourself. And then when you went to the post office to mail it, you had them calculate the weight and we sent it all to one person. You had the postage put on both envelopes. So we sent them all to Tracy, who then sorted them for everybody in the swap and separated them out. So like if you had 10 of each print and each person got 2, they sorted them, and she would then, once they were sorted, she put them in your self-addressed envelope, which already had the postage on it, because the same number that you sent, you were going to get back in a variety of prints. And that worked out really well. And I got quite a few different. And I like getting them at Tuesday morning. If I do another napkin swap, though, I would like to do one that was more specific, like everybody agreed to do napkins that were like for backgrounds. Because some of the napkins I got, I will never use. Like, I don't know, like typical like birthday napkins or kitty napkins. They just weren't something that I would actually use. I like the ones that have the butterflies and the florals. And some of the French stuff. Okay, we need one of these real small ones. I think I'm just going to leave newsprint and not put a piece in. I think I'll put a piece of this. So I don't want brown. It's going to go right here. Either that or I could just do another piece of this. Maybe that would work. And I'm just going to tear it. And put that in right there. Still needs a little bit shaved off the edge. All right, that gets him all pieced in. I think he's looking pretty good and balanced. Dee Dee's gonna I don't want to stream early. Dee Dee's gonna stream. I don't know how long they'll stream. Sometimes she'll go really long and sometimes she doesn't. I would say about 3 Eastern time. Between 2 and 3 Eastern time, so that I came on between 1 or 2 my time. Because I think Jean's time is kind of more about 3 Eastern time. So I think I'll say 3 Eastern time for Monday. All right, so now I'm going to add a coat over the top of all the papers that we just put on. Get a good liberal coat and seal those. And then while that is drying, I'm going to put in, like we did last time, I don't think I want to mess with the swirls and paper. I think it's busy enough. And I think if I do too much of that, it'll take away from the turtle. I might do some pattern in the background, but like color on color. So let's getting rid of some of the scraps around me and the paper real quick. And then I'm going to pick a color for the, well, it needs to be watercolor or it's just not going to make any sense. Probably. And I'm going to put in some color in the background. I think what I can do is go a little more blue. Let me hold that up so you can see. I want to avoid the turquoise. Alright, so what I'm going to do is get a piece of scrap paper here real quick. It's just a piece of map. Because I want to test out some blues. Thank you, Shauna. So I'm just going to tap out a few blues These are all in the Deco Art fluid acrylics. And just kind of audition some blues here. I want to use more than one. I just want to, and I'm thinking about adding some purple in there for the water. All right, I think I'm going to get rid of the Prussian blue. That's a little dark. Let's try this one. Let me clean my brush a little bit. Try that one again. Yeah, I think that's too turquoise. More than I want. Alright. So, I like these three. So what I ended up with is primary cayenne, a dioxide purple, dioxine, it's hard to say, and a cobalt blue. And I'm going to do what I did the other day, is try to find the glazing medium. And I'm going to start out with some of the lighter. I'm making a mess here. Baby wipe. Like paint's out for 2 seconds and I have paint on every paint smears on every finger. Yes, I can open links, Carrie. Give me just a second. Wait a minute. All right, links are open. All right, so what I'm going to start with is the primary cayenne and a little bit of the glazing medium. And this is by Deco Arts. It's the Traditions. I just ordered a whole bunch more of their paints. I love them way more than, I mean, I like Americana, and they don't have as many colors, but I really like working with them. I like the fluids if I'm wanting translucent. Layers. And I'm just going to put some of that here and there. Alright, then I'm going to blend it out a little bit and pull it back in some places. And I'm going to add some of the cobalt blue. Pick up some of that glazing. Medium. Don't want to do that. I'm going to kind of model it a little bit using my baby wipe. Give it a little texture kind of. Flip that and come in here. Add some in there. Okay, and I'm going to get a clean baby wipe. Kind of pounce remove some of that back. Okay. Come in here, in this area. Let's turn this so you can see it a little better. Okay. Pounce some of that. Blend it a little. I'm just kind of giving it a little twist almost. I got one more corner here. And then I'm going to come in a minute. I'm going to let it dry so that that doesn't move too much. And come in with some of the purple. Maybe give a sense of motion. Okay, so let me pull that map paper back that we had. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of some of this extra paint that I have on the table. So it's not wasted. Okay. So I'll let that set up just a little bit. And then I think I'm going to add some purple in there. Especially since it's complementary to the yellow. It will keep it the watercolor, but maybe add some interest. Yeah, let me give that a little shot in the fan. No, this is his leg. Oh, this is a little bit right here, maybe. This is the rest of his arm. But I'll come in here with the purple or the pin that needs to my drawing might need to be adjusted right in here. Yeah, this is part of the flipper, but I do need to adjust it. But I think I want to get the flipper in and then I'll come in with the pip markers. All right, so let's do just a little of the purple. And the gel. And then I may switch brushes and switch to a round brush. Actually, I'm not sure. I may use a filbert, smaller filbert. Oh, no wonder it doesn't look purple, because no, it's here and here. It's kind of foreshortened, so he's not. This is his tail right in here. I went with the wrong, I got the wrong color. I put the purple away and got the blue. Just a second. I thought I kept out the purple. Yeah, he's kind of foreshortened because his shell is sort of a little at an angle too, I think. There we go. All right, I need to blot out some of this while it's still wet. But it does need just a little bit more right in here, because it's drawn a little differently than this flipper was. All right. Pull back some of that blue. Now, purple. For real. So I'm thinking like maybe some movement. and then kind of blend it. I think I'm going to use a cleaner dry brush to kind of blend with rather than the baby wipes. Kind of get some movement of like water. I put Abby up on Etsy, but I don't sell too much off my Etsy. I just think it's so hard to get any traffic. To speak of. And I kind of let that one blend up. Over the frame. Maybe too busy. I think I'm just gonna make it more subtle with the purple. I think it's too much. What I think I might do is, what I might like more is new stencil. Where'd they go? I cut a new bubble stencil that's big. I'm going to use that and stencil in the purple. With a makeup sponge on top of the blue. So there'll be pops of purple and pops of blue. I'm just pulling back some of this that I just put on so it's much lighter and gets even back to some of the print. Get rid of the brushes. Yeah, it's even like posting that, since they let people sell things that are not handmade on Etsy, you're competing with, it's not what I would want, but you're competing with vendors. And I'm just taking the paper pieces and sticking some paper back in here to kind of, so I can stamp around him but not touch him. This is just some scrap paper. You're competing with like all of the, say you sell jewelry, all those companies that mass produce out of China. And so you're in it's hard for your stuff to come up in the search. And so if people are not directly going to you because you promoted, it's hard to drive the traffic there and get. Okay, and I'm gonna. Some of that needs to be wiped back right here. I like that. Do y'all like the blue with the bubbles? So I find that if I just find local art shows, and unfortunately, so many people don't want to pay. You know, they want a price as though it was assembly line. And they don't understand the time you have in it. And like I said, I'm just using some of the pieces left that I paper pieced with to block and protect him. Let me slip this one out and stick it in over here. And then this is just a piece of yellow scrapbook paper that I'd used for something else the other day, doing the same thing. So I'm going to try Society 6 and Fine Art America and try posting things where you don't have to have the crazy inventory. That, you know, you basically pick your upcharge, which determines the final price. They tell you what the base price is, and you pick what you're going to upcharge for your work. And essentially what you can do is load your photographs of your original work. And people can go in and order, like, they could say, I like this picture and I want it on a coffee mug. Or I like this picture and I want it on a throw pillow. Or I want a canvas, or I want a print. And they can order the size they want. Your photos, the JPEG size is what I haven't really worked out and gotten a good handle on. When I tried the first time to put some stuff up, they will sell prints, phone covers, pillows. Some of them even will like sell shower curtains, duvet covers, whatever the artist list. So like you upload your picture, Carrie, and they tell you at that time, this picture can be put on here's the limitations of this JPEG file. And then they'll tell you you can do coffee mugs. Here's the base price. You decide what your upcharge is. Here's what and it'll tell you what products your picture file will work with. And that's what I just didn't, I was working on making sure that my picture files were uploaded. I was using pictures taken with my cell phone. So I actually don't think that is the issue. It's just a matter of the file format they're stored in, possibly. And then there's America Fine Art, besides Society 6, is the other one. It's, you have to pay to, well, I think there's a free part. And I don't know whether that would generate any more income or generate more, but you're not getting rid of your original. You're keeping the original. So I figured if I could figure it out, it wouldn't hurt. They make the product and ship it. So what they do is they have everything when the artist goes in that's listed as a base price. So say a coffee mug, the base price is $3, and you decide you want to make $1 and sell it for $4.99. You know, you want to, then that you make that actual upcharge. When the person orders it, they see that the coffee mug costs $4.99. They order it, and the upcharge goes to the artist. They tell you what the shipping is on your order. You just put it in your cart just like you would shopping online anywhere else. And I don't know where his feet are. I bet I threw them away. I'm getting his feet back. Or trying to get his feet back. But yeah, I think the resolution of my files, of my digital files, is what I need to work on. And you're right, Carrie. That's exactly what it is. Yes, they're paying you for the use of your print. And they're getting, and you can get it like in a matted, in a frame. You can get it on a, like a canvas. You know how you get the canvases like at TJ Maxx and some of those places? So what the artist is selling is your prints. And the consumer is getting the chance to put, like it's a way to custom a cell phone cover. It's one of the places that you can get. So I just thought it might be a viable option for me. Society 6 is free. The one, America's Fine Art, I know I was going to look at a year. By then was $30. And I didn't think that was bad. And I think they actually, you can do it for free, but maybe it's more limited. And they go through PayPal. Okay. I like that. We set that aside. And we'll just get rid of some of this purple paint. Yeah, you still retain ownership. You can sell the original. you don't have to control, you don't have to have inventory or keep, like I know at one time Patty had done some of her jelly prints on like wine covers, the little slip covers that you can put over like a wine bottle, and had them printed and sold them in her Etsy store, but she had to carry the inventory. See, where if I, for Etsy, I have to build and keep an inventory. Even if I do prints, I have to keep the inventory. So then I'm at risk, where this way you could load all of your artwork that you had for sale and people could buy prints. No ransom. Okay. And I'm just going to pull back in a few areas and distress some of the purple. And then, like, see how that's not purple all the way up against? That's where I'll use the Faber Castells too. And I can even, like, shadow some of the, like, that purple didn't get right up next to him. I want to lighten some of that, where you can definitely see some of the newsprint still and the text. Okay. It's under Debbie Epps. I have just decided to keep everything under Debbie Epps. That way, when I'm in art shows and stuff, and people get my cards, they can remember. They can remember my name. Then they can find it. That's what I put my website under, and my Etsy, and Twitter, and Facebook, and all of that now. It's just Debbie Epps. Thought if it was all the same, and I thought about doing a cute studio name, but people wouldn't remember. I didn't think people would remember it necessarily. Okay. Do we think that's too dark? What do you think? I mean, he's not done. If I whitewash him out too much, then he'll blend. And it keeps it easier for just remembering. Alright, so get rid of that purple paint. Put the lid on the gel medium. Pull these markers back I used earlier, because those will be the bulk of the markers. And so I have this is called Nougat and Walnut Brown and Raw Umber for the browns. And this is a green gold. And I think this one is chromium green, opaque. They're all kind of a mid-tone value. I don't think I'll do anything to the background right now. Some white. Yeah, because what we could do when we're done is we could come back in with and add some of the purple. This is just the like that. It's hard to see if I get closer up. Or I could also get the stencil out with some whitewash paint and lightly hit some of the bubbles. But I think this might be easier to control, or even put smaller white bubbles and move it where there's small ones. I have a stencil that's the same stencil. I have a stencil that I cut that's the same one. It's just a different scale. That's circles. Which is why I cut that big one the other night. It's because that's one of my favorite stencils that I use all the time. It's the exact same one, but it's in a smaller scale. So maybe I'll come back in and put some of those in white. Oh, he'll go to the first good home for a really good price. And if Linda were here, Dan would tell me exactly what price he should be. I think I'm going to use the green a lot on the turtle. To get that. And I'm just, nope, no sentiment. Sometimes I do. We'll need to give them a name. And I said I wasn't going to use any purple, but I actually am going to use some purple with the green to get a little bit of a darker. I kind of like some of that iridescent. I got some purple down here, and I kind of like the keep them darker on one side. Hi, Iffy. Thank you. We are, well, what we've done so far is paper pieced a sea turtle and put it in the background, but we're not done with the background. And now I'm using the Faber Castells to kind of shade and give him some depth and dimension. All right, I'm gonna flip it and do the same thing. This is where I need to kind of see his flippers like right there. So there's only a little bit that doesn't have the background color. This definitely needs that darker brown. One of the things that Bob and I were talking about this morning was eventually getting an RV or something of that nature, and then when we're off, being able to travel and doing art shows in other places. But we haven't figured out what to do about Fat Fanny and the other two cats, because I'm not quite so sure they'll travel. So I'm not sure they'd be copacetic with that idea of being gone and having a house on wheels. Okay. I like the fins up here. I think I want a little more green, and I think I'm even going to put some yellow in here just to kind of, you can still see the paper. I think I want to brighten it with a little bit of yellow. But you can still see the print of the original papers. Yeah, Fat Fanny is a little spoiled. Just saying. We don't know whose fault it is. Bob says it's mine. I say it's his. But she's vocal. I thought when we moved back from Las Vegas to Texas, she was just right at like 2 years old. I thought she was going to die. I pulled over when we got to the Arizona Texas border and called Bob on my phone, was like, she quit talking. She had gotten so quiet, and she had for 4 days been very vocal the whole trip. I thought she had given up the ghost. She just had decided I wasn't listening. But she talks a lot. A lot. And you really can't ignore her. Because she'll continue. Yeah, I know it can be expensive, which is why we were talking about if we paired it with an art show. It might make it a more affordable. Yeah, she lost her poor little kitty voice. Arizona was bad all the way around because the other one found a hole in the screen at the hotel. We stayed someplace that had like a patio door, and she tried to run away and escaped. But I neglected to mention that we also had a 5-foot iguana, a 9-foot snake, and about a 3-foot snake. So it was quite the little. My husband's a science teacher also, which is why we had the iguana and the snakes. He teaches biology or social studies, where I teach more elementary age and math. My husband doesn't do art. He is a musician. He plays guitar. See, I'm not sure if I want the brown on this. I didn't like the green on the yellow so much. I'm going to try a lighter brown. To shade it more. And then I'll come back with the darker brown on the edge. Yeah, he sold reptiles for a while. So at one point we had lots, like frogs and corn snakes and spiders and all kinds of stuff at the house. Yeah, music is an art. And sometimes when I do art shows, he will bring his acoustic guitar and sit and play. But if I'm here, he usually is like, I'll be at the house. It's too hot outside. Okay. All right, put a little green over this one. And then I think I'll finish it in the end. Brown. Okay. Like those. And I'm wiping my fingers on a baby wipe so that when I'm like using yellow, I don't get brown because I smear with my fingers. Kind of avoiding the head right now. I think I'm going to keep the center bright. And then add some areas of darker green. Then come back with the brown. He's got wrinkles sort of in around here, almost what looks like a collar. It's that, so I'm just going to use the brown and kind of drag it. Get his wrinkles in there. Darken this side right here and keep the front lighter. Okay, and his eye, I'm going to use a black paint pen. And all I did is make a little cut in my reference photo. And I'm going to fold that up just to kind of help me with where I want to put that placement. I'm going to let that dry. Then I'm going to come back and put some of those rings in the brown. Yeah, this is going to go on my Etsy site. I think I put Abigail the Hare on there the other day. I know I put the black canvases on. I think I put Abigail the Hare, but I'm not positive. But yeah. I when I first did scrapbooking, I did albums for us. But I was like, we don't have kids. What is the purpose in all of this? And you can fill your house really fast. And so I started teaching classes and selling layouts. And so and my dad has always sold his art, and my grandmother, so it was kind of the expected thing to do, or it's what allows me to continue to, because there's only so much you can hang in your own house. And so what I'm going to do is shadow each of these. I'm just working with the yellow right now, just to give them a little bit of more of a 3D and not be so flat. I'm going to add shading right in the edges of each one in the color, the dominant color. Still haven't thought of a name for him. Kind of thought about Raymond for some reason. No real reason. Okay. I want that to be a brown. Well, I'm going to start with the yellow. All right, one more yellow-ish one. And then we're ready to switch to the brown or the turquoise green, kind of. Yeah. And I think this one needs some of that lighter raw umber. I think this one does too. think it has a little more depth than the gold. And I'll probably come around with the dark brown all the way around the outside. And then I'll add in some shadows in gray. And maybe even some highlights in the top part. Chat got quiet. Okay, just making sure I didn't lose chat. I'm telling you, my favorite painting device. You're turtleized. Okay, that's pretty good for the yellow brown is what we need to work on next. I think I'll use the lighter brown for some of the paper parts and the darker brown. So I think I'll start with the lighter brown to start with to pull in some of the shadows and depth, and then come back with the heavier this is nougat. Thank you, Carrie. Once you start adding the paint layers, he starts being more 3D. And usually I just focus on the edges and kind of smear in. If I want like a watermark or something, or heavier, just put a little, just scribble a little out and then just pat it lightly with my finger. I'm going to switch to the heavier brown, the darker. And if you let it dry, then you can build up layers. Since these are both brown, you can go both ways. And if you want it to go in like another depth, like up under, just pull back towards the paper. Like if the paper's higher next to it, you can kind of get it up in that crease. And the surface, but eyelets aren't that hard, Vicki. The surface that you, yeah, but practice before you do it on your. Okay. Almost done with the brown. Need to do that one, and I'm going to come back to this one a little more. If I barely touch it, or if I wait, I get more full strength. Okay, I think I'm happy with the browns. Like I said, I will come back and definitely darken around the rest of the shell. Once I have the green done. Like I did for the brown and the yellow. Okay, I have this green, but I'm thinking I'm going to start with some of the turquoise. These are easy to paint with. It's the brush tip. I think the clean zig with the watercolor could be a similar, like the shading with those that you can get and the depth that you can build. I'm putting the marker over the gel medium, yeah, over dry Mod Podge. And then when I'm done, Carrie, I'll put one final coat of gel medium once it's good and dry. And because these are permanent once they're dry, because they're India ink. And that way it can't scratch off. And then I'll put like a gloss varnish over it so that the colors pop. But it's not a regular marker. What makes it permanent is that it's India ink. I think I like this light turquoise on some of this printed paper. So I think I'll color those in on this. It's not making a whole lot of a difference on these papers, just as it is. So I'm going to switch to the other green. I have a zig that I could use, but it's not waterproof, so it will smear. I have cheated and used it before, and it will smear. But if I'm careful with my brush strokes, I sometimes get away with it. They need a darker green in the Faber Castell line. Just saying, if you're listening. Faber Castell. I also think some of this brown would blend on this darker color. And put some depth. Right, now I'm going to come in with some of the, I didn't do those up there. I'll do them in a minute. I'll come in with some of that green that we put on the fins to darken it in places. And that'll help bury some of that. A fixative would work to some degree. Or what I have done sometimes, if I'm all done, I don't have a can of it right now, but Deco Arts has triple thick glaze in a spray. And if I'm all done, I could just spray that. It just depends what I'm doing. And I just work back and forth between areas. And that'll dry and I can build the layers. Okay. I want to come in with that there. And I know I need that. I want this dark brown. Around there to finish that. Oh, wrong end. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to try to use some of this to put in some texture. In his face. Get it a little more realistic. And then I'm going to come back with this dark brown and separate these plates more. Now that they have their shadows in. Alright, and I think I'm gonna bring in some texture here with the green and the brown. Start with the green again. Come in with the darker color. This is farther away, so I want it a little more shadowed and not as fine of the detail. Okay. Come in and hit some areas with the white. The white has a little bit of a different texture, and if you use it on a color that's wet, I usually just use my hand to kind of clean it again. It might even have a little bit of a pink. I have two. That one's acting like it's dried up. And so what I'll do sometimes is put the whites in heavy where I want some highlights, and then come back with a marker because it'll be light once it's dry. Okay, I'll work around his eye again. With some different shades of brown. I think that looks better. Give you a little bit. It'll focus. You can't see the detail of the ridges of the pen. All right, and this is a lighter green, more of a line. I'm going to come back in and hit where I put some of that white. I think I would put that over in here too, where some of the yellow is. Okay. Tried to get a highlight in that eye, but it did not want to. So I'm going to switch, put black back in, and then I'm going to switch markers to a paint marker. This is a little too big of a bullet. No, I don't like it on that side. That's better. All right, I think that he's done. Put those back. Where they belong. He needs some gray. In his shadow. Where he's now I'll probably come back in with some grays after I do the white. All right, so what I'm gonna do next is, this is just Americana whitewash paint, and I'm gonna mix it with just a little bit of Snow White to give it a little bit more opacity. This is almost gone. What happened was I thought I was ordering more of the Snow White, and I ordered the whitewash, which doesn't have the opacity. Okay. And then I'm going to put in some of the little circles. Get our papers again to protect. Now I've lost. This will help me keep it clean, not make a mess. We're going to do this piece and we'll decide. Yes, we like it. I'm waiting for the lag here. I think it helps tone down the background, mute it a little. All right, well, I'm going to carry on. Lighter in some areas, heavier in others. Clean up the edges if I get over on the frame. I think it gives it more depth for the background. All right. Carry on with that. head to protect his foot. That'll work. Clean up that edge. Here's his foot. Don't know what I did with that little piece. I'm just going to block it like that. Okay. Okay. Should be able to get a big chunk here. Need more paint. I made some kind of lavenders. And light blues. Okay. Okay. Clean that up. I'm just going to hit it lightly with some of the baby wiping areas. Reminds me of paper now. All right, I need to stop the recording and save it. Just a second.